So a lot of leaders feel like they're working harder than ever and not actually becoming more effective.
Many executives are very comfortable with the technical portions of their position. They've risen through the ranks. They know how to do a marketing proposal. If you start out the race too fast, you're going to pay for it later on. If and not having a plan that's a plan in itself.
Scaled, the platform you need.
So welcome to another episode of the Skilled Ed Show, where we speak with entrepreneurs, CEOs, service-based business owners about how to increase cash flow and profits using fully automated AI marketing systems while repairing credit and securing funding to scale their operations. In this show, we don't just talk about business growth, we dive deep into the human side of success, exploring the four core domains that shape who we are: our body, our being, balance, and business. So sit back and get ready for an insightful, powerful conversation that goes beyond profits and systems into purpose, mindset, and meaning. Today, I'm thrilled to have Dr. Bill Sodeman with us. Dr. Bill is an executive coach, business strategist, professor, and leadership advisor with decades of real world experience working alongside business owners, senior leaders, and executive teams. With a background that spans executive leadership roles and advanced business education, he brings a rare blend of strategic insight, operational discipline, and practical wisdom to their coaching and employee training consulting practices. Rather than just focusing on theory alone, his approach centers on helping leaders translate clarity into execution, strengthening decision making and accountability with long term performance. He's also known for working with high performance leaders who are successful on paper but want to elevate how they lead, communicate, drive results across organizations. His coaching focuses on the intersection of mindset, behavior, business outcomes, helping clients remove internal constraints, build executive presence, and lead with greater intention and impact. Whether working with founders, C-suite executives, or rising leaders, his work is grounded in measurable results and motivational soundbites. Today, we'll be talking about leadership, effectiveness, influence, and what truly drives sustained performance at the executive level. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bill. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, so let's talk about your journey. How did you get into the coaching industry, and was it a path that you always envisioned for yourself?
I didn't really consider coaching as an opportunity until late last year. I'd stepped away from my roles as an adjunct professor and a nonprofit executive, and I was looking for my next adventure. Um, as I was looking at coaching, it hit me that I had been doing coaching informally for decades. I was a business professor for 30 years and overlapped that with stints as a chief information officer and a chief learning officer. So people would come to me for advice, and I would go to people for advice too. So I was a coach and being coached at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I got my Focal Point coaching franchise, they had several months of training that helped me realize, yes, I've been operating as a coach, and now it's my profession. I love it. I get to talk with interesting people, hear their stories and opportunities for growth, and help guide them on their next adventure.
Right. So I see you've worked with a lot of business owners and executive teams. What is it about the coaching industry that really draws you in?
It's the opportunity to share my experience, both as an academic and an executive, and just to work with people who are driven. When somebody engages a coach, they want to succeed at some level. Um, and that really is a magnet that draws me in to the engagement and the conversations. Um, I'm lucky because I've had people I've coached and clients who are very receptive to doing something different, to tries new opportunities and new approaches. For example, with leadership, we get into our own leadership habits over time. Uh, I'm an introvert, but I front as an extrovert pretty well. And, with introverts, one of our challenges is that we sit and listen and take it all in, whereas, someone who's more extroverted helps drive the conversation. Where introverts are known for being the quiet, thoughtful people in the room who speak up when they've got inspiration and something important to say. And I've had to channel my extrovert so that I can engage effectively with coaching clients. But, part of my training as a full-time coach helped me realize I had been doing the extroversion all along as a teacher. Um, Standing in front of a classroom means that I've got to drive the conversation. And even then, my teaching style was very participatory. I'm allergic to PowerPoint. It makes me break out in hives. So I'd have a short slide deck to start off the class, and then that it would gradually morph into a discussion. And I want to think that the good students sought me out, not because I was fun necessarily, but because I was engaging and challenged them to really think about the course and the material. Um, and that there's an overlap with the kinds of clients I attract. They they want to think about their opportunities seriously. Um, the one thing that we can't get back is time, and it's never too late to start coaching. That's one of the things I would tell anybody who's not only considering being coached, but someone who wants to be a coach. This was just the right time in my life to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I perfectly understand you because I'm also an introvert. So it's sometimes it just, is and in this age where we have to be on social media, sometimes it's sort of exhausting because you have to now come out of your comfort zone. And then, so I actually understand what you're talking about. So, but what's the most rewarding part of working with executives?
It's the aha moments where um, my partner in coaching, the client, has a breakthrough. One of the things I've learned in coaching is that we often overlook our own strengths. If we take them for granted. I'm a friend of mine noticed that I'm a really fast reader, and I just take that for granted that I can scan through a document really quickly and go, oh, one, two, three. Here are the big points on that,
Mhm.
and that's something that I still carry in my head when I work with executives. They're often so pressed for time and have so many responsibilities. It's not that they forget what they do well, they just take it for granted and they don't lean into it as much.
Mhm. Mhm. So, would you consider that a unique perspective that you bring to your clients?
I do. It's
Mhm.
it's a helpful perspective. Um, many clients, when they seek coaching help, they're feeling a little bit lost. And part of my job is being a guide and a trusted advisor to help them not only on back on a path, but to make sure that we can identify several paths and find the right one for them.
Mhm. So now that we've talked about your professional journey, I'd like to go deeper into areas that shape not just our careers, but our lives as a whole. I think exploring them gives us a more complete picture of success. As entrepreneurs, we carry a lot mentally, emotionally, and physically. So, how do you prioritize your physical health and how has it impacted your work? You want predictable growth. You think you can scale a real business by duct taping tools together and praying that the team keeps up. You're right. Try this new tool. Actually, don't. Because that's the fastest way to burn out your people, your systems, and your sanity. Let me be real with you for a second. You don't need a new tool. You don't need another dashboard, another automation hack, or another quick fix. Because growing a business without real operational leverage feels like running a marathon on a wet cement. You're juggling Slack threads, email reminders, spreadsheets, quick fixes, and somehow still hoping they're not embraced. You're alright. One missed follow-up, one forgotten task, one handoff that slips, and suddenly your entire pipeline feels like a Jenga tower in an earthquake. For some of you, projects are moving, but workflow feels fragile. Everyone is busy, yet nothing is truly under control. For others, the chaos is in the pipeline. Leads get lost, follow-up is inconsistent, revenue swings up and down like a jangulator, and growth depends entirely on efforts instead of structure. This isn't because you're lazy or unfocused or undisciplined. It's because you're trying to scale output on top of manual work, heroic effort, and mental load. That friction you're feeling, it's the system telling you this doesn't scale. And here's the most part that founders don't want to admit. If results only happen when people push harder, you don't have leverage. You have strain dressed up as progress. And every month you delay fixing those leverage gaps, that friction compounds. The workload grows heavier, decision slows down, execution becomes harder to trust. Here's the shift. Stop trying to work harder through the problem and start trying to design a business that produces results even when no one's scrambling. That means treating your operations, your pipeline, and execution like a real system, not a collection of good intentions and checklists. You get what I mean? The goal is simple. Fewer moving parts, cleaner execution, and stronger throughput. That's why we created the AI Systems Review. Not a pitch, not a gimmick, not another shiny tactic. It's a clarity session where we map out how your pipeline, delivery, and financial signals actually flow across the business. We expose where leverage is leaking, where work is carried out by effort instead of structure, and where automation and systems can turn chaos into predictable momentum. We have run this review between businesses that are doing between $200,000 and $1 million, and the same pattern appears every single time. Once the friction points are visible, leverage becomes buildable. For business owners who want to claim clarity and control, and for founders who want to scale output, compounding performance, this is where both align. You get what I mean? You walk away with a practical roadmap, clear priorities, and a realistic path to growth that doesn't rely on pushing harder every quarter. Whether you choose to implement with us or not, you've got a choice. Here's the choice. Keep building on manual effort, memory, and best intentions, and hope that nothing breaks. Or build a business that grows with structure, leverage, and predictable outcomes. Unless you genuinely believe that your business couldn't perform any better than it does today, click the link to book a session.
I work out every day, whether it's just a daily walk or, hitting the weights, or this morning I was doing sprints on the treadmill because the temperature here in Toledo, Ohio is hovering around freezing, and I grew up in the South. I'm not going out in that. Um, but I do something active every day, and that really helps me focus. I do it early in the morning before I get my workday started, so I know I've accomplished something that gets me towards my goals. I used to run marathons. Now I run 5 kilometer races, 3.1 miles. Um, it doesn't take as much time to train for them. Plus, I get to run much faster than I would in a marathon. So, you know, watching my physical and mental health are also important to me because they affect each other. 1 in 3 Americans have some sort of mental health issue that they may not be confronting, and in some cases, they are working on it, and I'm one of them. Uh, but mental health is a priority as a solo entrepreneur. While I've got a virtual assistant and some podcast producers for my own podcast, The Perfect Route. Every day, I look in the mirror and there's my boss staring back at me. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. But, you know, it, you know, the clock on the wall helps keep me accountable, as does my calendar and my project board. So that, at the end of the day, it'll fly by, but I can tick off the items that I've completed and know that I've accomplished valuable work. And that helps not only reinforce my mental health, it carries over to the physical health as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So how has there ever been a time that your physical health directly affected your performance or decision making?
Yeah. Certainly during COVID, you know, I got COVID in January of 2021, and that hammered me. I was out of work for a week. I was just laying back and trying to recover. And even then, it took me 2 or 3 weeks to really feel like I was back up to speed again. Um, that was a challenge. And fortunately, I don't have any long-term symptoms of COVID like some people have. But it reminded me just how tenuous physical health can be. And, as a runner and an athlete, I tend to take it for granted that I'll be in a good physical state to do a workout. When I'm not, then I adjust things a little bit. And the same thing happens with my regular work as well. I'm not afraid to take a micro nap. That is one of the great things about working for myself is if I can, carve out a little open block on my schedule for 15 or 30 minutes just to shut my eyes and put myself together. That's great. Um, if I were at work, then, falling asleep at my desk, usually not an option. But I'm working for somebody else, but working for me, I can find that balance, and I can do the same thing with my mental health. I can, you know, turn off the screens for a few moments and just pause my mind and reflect on how the day is going and how I feel.
Right. So would you say that your workouts, or your daily habits, they are the ones that helped you to stay centered and realigned as things get overwhelming?
Yeah, I've been running distances for over 50 years now. It's just second nature to me. Especially as the weather gets warmer and the sun comes out. That's my fun time where I can get to run around town and see things and be part of the outdoors. That's really important to me. Um, and even during the winter when I've got to hit the workout room because of the weather, it's still helpful work for me.
Right. So balancing business and personal life, it can be tough, and especially when you're in a high demand industry like yours. How do you maintain a strong relationship with those closest to you, your loved ones and all?
One of the temptations of being a solo entrepreneur is just to keep working and keep going. And I set a time every day where I'm just going to shut it down and be with the people who are close to me. Not check my phone, not worry about work. Now, if a client calls me, of course I'll pick up and work with them because there's a good reason that they've called me. But my home office, I close the door when I'm done for the workday. That's just a reminder to me that I'm off duty, and that is mentally very important. As a professor, that's one thing that really affected me because um, it's so easy to take work home, do grading, do lesson preps at home. And I gradually learned over my career that would affect my mental health significantly. Um, and that made me work harder when I was in my office so that I could, you know, make sure that I had that time available not only for myself, but the people in my life.
Where? So, is there any advice that you give to other business coach, and coaches, and on finding and protecting balance between work and life, personal life?
Um, I use calendar blocking very well, and I find that that's effective. I'll make sure that I block out time on my business calendar y- when I need it for so that nobody lands on my calendar unexpectedly. Um, and some people might say that I'm limiting my availability on the calendar, but I know myself well enough after all these years that during the day, I need to recharge a couple of times, even if it's a micro nap, even if it's a brief reflection session. That's one big piece of advice is that I would give others is set those boundaries so that the work life doesn't bleed over to personal time.
Right. So, finally, let's talk about business, the area where you've poured in your time, your creativity, your leadership. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career that shaped the way you approach business today?
That's a good question. Um, I was an art student as an undergraduate, and I'd see the business students work in their study groups on presentations and roll my eyes and ask myself, well, what is all that about? I was so focused on the creative process in printmaking and etching and photography, as well as painting, that it didn't occur to me until my senior year in college when I took an accounting course and an economics course that perhaps business was its own creative process. And once I did my MBA and then I took a year to work and jumped right into a doctoral program, um, I really bonded with the opportunities to be creative and innovative at the same time being the sponge for knowledge that I am.
Right.
Those 6 years between the MBA program and the PhD program were my jam because I got to work with smart people every day. And I got to work with students because I was teaching all 4 years that I was a doctoral student. And I was young, naive teacher, but I learned a lot in those 4 years and carried that forward. And one of my passions is continuous improvement. So that when we talk about creativity and innovation, they walk hand in hand with continuous improvement. It's hard to move forward without being open to different approaches and I hate using the phrase thinking outside the box, but being more aware of opportunities.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
that's what ended up drawing me into coaching as well, because it was an exciting new opportunity.
Okay, so what's one thing that you wish you knew when you started out?
Started out as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, as a coach, yeah.
Yeah, because I started as a coach, and that was also the first time I'd ever worked for myself.
Okay.
And if future Bill could go back and talk with Bill a year ago and say, uh, here's some tips that'll help you get through it. Time management is critical. The calendar blocking helps. Um, being disciplined and honest with myself about how I use my time is essential. And also, prioritizing opportunities to talk with other coaches and other professionals. Working from home can be very isolating, but it's important to not only have conversations virtually. I do a few Zoom calls every day. I'm also involved in a couple of business networking groups, one of which meets face to face, and I always look forward to Wednesdays because that gets me not only out of the house, it gets me out of my comfort zone, and it's a good reminder to me about why I got involved in coaching, and I go to other events during the week too. Um, it's just essential for me to get out there and even though my market is national, I still need to feel part of the community here in Toledo.
Mhm. Okay, so what are bottlenecks that you or challenges that you're currently navigating, and how are you approaching them in your business?
I've got some opportunities with my podcast and public speaking that I'm working on right now. Um, and public speaking isn't outside my comfort zone, but business development is something I've had to learn over the last year. I think that's another piece of advice that future Bill would go back in time and a year ago and tell past Bill. If focus on the business development piece. And again, being a solo entrepreneur, it's on me. So I'm mindful about the opportunities I have to not only work with potential clients, but to forge those relationships because, every conversation's not going to result in an engagement, but it could result in a referral. It could result in a valuable new member of my network. And I've gotten great inspiration from many people I've met over the last year as an entrepreneur. Some of them I talk to pretty regularly, and it's a give and take. They'll talk with me about some of the opportunities they face. I do the same. And often it not only leads to those aha moments I talked about earlier, it leads to some potential for collaboration.
Right. So performance at the executive level often spikes under pressure, and it then collapses over time. So what's missing in the way leaders manage their energy, their habits, their mindsets that prevent sustained performance, and how can they fix it?
Um, Someone once said that life is a marathon, not a sprint, but sometimes you've got to sprint. And running's a good metaphor for that because when I was running marathons, it was all about endurance and distance and how much punishment could I take. Um, and now that I'm working on shorter distances, it's a good thing for me to apply to my professional life because there are projects that I've got where I have to sprint and move quickly. And that's a big difference that I see between my life as a professor and my life now. As a professor, I, I would map out every week on my course schedules and figure out a strategy to try to get more knowledge transferred than I thought I could to my students. Um, and part of being a professor is writing and service to the university and to organizations, and those are also very important. Um, and if there's anything that I've learned over the last year, it's just not only time management, but it's also the ability to prioritize the valuable work.
Right.
Um, which is, it's got to get done. And as a solo entrepreneur, I'm the one who's doing it.
Right. So a lot of leaders feel like they're working harder than ever and not actually becoming is not becoming more effective. So what's the hidden leadership habit that creates activity without impact, and how do they break it?
One of the frameworks that I use is a piece called The Three Eyes of the Entrepreneur. Many executives are very comfortable with the technical portions of their position. They've risen through the ranks. They know how to do a marketing proposal, or they know their way around operations. And it's very tempting to, for example, the owner of a roofing company, it's very tempting to go out with the crew and just leap into a job because they're comfortable with doing that work. But they're giving up valuable time for the other two eyes of the entrepreneur. If being a technician is about relying on what you've learned and what you know, then being a manager is involves being in the present and thinking about the future. And something about entrepreneurs and business owners is we don't spend enough time thinking about the future, and that's the third eye. Looking ahead and planning. My doctorate is in business strategy, which involves a lot of planning. And again, I'll go back to marathoning. If you start out the race too fast, you're going to pay for it later on. If y- and Not having a plan that's a plan in itself. Um, so planning is crucial, and I counsel executives to take the time and the discipline to think about how what they're doing is in alignment with not only their own personal strategic plan, but with their organization's strategy as well. That's a great way to identify valuable work.
Right. So what roles have systems, automation, and even access to funding played in helping you scale and stay consistent?
I'm working on automating my CRM right now, and that involves some AI. It, it's I think I'm lucky that I decided to leap into solo entrepreneurship in 2025, because if I'd done it in 2015 or even earlier, there would be a lot of hands-on technical tasks that I would have to do. Mm, Whereas now there are so many AI services available, and features that are in the platforms that I use.
Mm.
My podcast, for example, it has some good AI features that not only help me edit podcasts, will the platform I use will generate video clips automatically. So I don't have to spend the time reviewing a podcast recording two or three times and painstakingly to write down the time code so I could go out and clip those pieces, in a matter of a minute or two. Those pieces are already available for me, and I can have them captioned and ready to go, which I think makes my work as a podcaster definitely more effective. And the same thing goes with my work in coaching. I've built a GPT for myself where I can customize the coaching curriculum for the client, and it's very much a a fast-paced piece that I enjoy using. Um, Having taught for as long as I have, I can do the work myself. Um, but I enjoy the quick turnaround time I get with using AI services and tools.
Mm-hmm. So at the Skilled Edge Show, we don't just talk about business. We talk about business owners having the edge, through fully automated AI marketing systems,
Mhm.
where they prepare business funding. What's your take on the importance of building financial stability and automation in a company's growth and strategy?
It's critical. In business strategy, we talk about competitive advantage, which is doing specific valuable things better than your competition does. But we also talk about key success factors, which everybody in an industry needs to do. And over the last 2 or 3 years, having some expertise within your organization on how to leverage AI to add value to the business has become a key success factor. I know many people scoff at AI or they're reluctant to use it. And part of my conversation when I encounter these people and hear their concerns is, working with them and for example, if somebody's using Google for search, they're using AI.
Yeah.
The same thing with Microsoft Bing. And those AI features are getting folded into the software. So if they're using Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, they're using AI. And there's more than likely a few services that they use every day, whether it's LinkedIn or search or something else, where AI is a crucial piece of the delivery. They just don't realize it. They don't know. Um, they may not necessarily care, but that can be another aha moment for these conversations with that, they're already using AI, whether they know it or not, and they're already reaping the benefits of it. So it's helpful to lean into it and find an expert and figure out what's a good purposeful path to building value using AI.
Right. So looking ahead, what's next for you? Any big goals or upcoming projects, both in business and in your coaching life?
Um, Client acquisition is always crucial. I'm looking forward to having enough clients where I can take on an associate coach. That'll amplify the business and help me focus on, you know, business development, give me some more opportunities for high value engagements as well as public speaking and the podcast, which there's a new episode every week on Thursdays. And I work ahead because it's a recorded podcast. I think
Right.
about 6 episodes ahead right now. And that's a good comfort zone for me. If I were doing a live podcast, I'd be sweating it every day. Well, I'm glad I chose to record mine.
Yeah, that's true. So finally, where can people connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Find me on LinkedIn at just search for Bill Sodeman. That's Sodeman, and you can connect and message me there. Also, my website n3ed.com has a handy button in the lower right hand corner where you can schedule some time to talk with me. It's a free call, and I'm always tickled every day when I see people filling up my calendar. And I love hearing their stories. I love finding out what's valuable for them. Um, what's their why?
Right.
At the end of the day, I think that's the big question that coaching poses for people. And I hope I can help my clients answer is what is, what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you enjoy your work? Why do you work so hard?
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bill, for joining us today and sharing with us not just your expertise as a business coach, but also your personal insights on purpose, health, and balance. It's been a pleasure having you on the Skilled Ed Show. I know that our listeners will take away powerful lessons from your story. And to everyone tuned in, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone that needs a little bit of inspiration. This episode was brought to you by Nolana, helping entrepreneurs streamline their operations, automate growth, repair credit, and secure the funding they need to scale with confidence. Until next time, keep your edge, keep growing, and remember, you're not alone.
Scaled, the platform you need.